2 weeks into the fall season, Captain Jonathan Hillstrand and brother Andy approach the end of their 40-pot load.
So who the hell is that?
He's not on my GPS, but he's on the damn radar. Come check it out. Your mama is not here to take care of you anymore.
Fishing is not an average job. Some days are hectic and others bring in big rewards, but it always comes with the chance to discover something crazy hiding under the waves. That's exactly what Jonathan Hillstrand and his crew found on Deadliest Catch. After days of searching, they went deeper than ever before, and what they pulled up was nothing short of terrifying. What did they find down there? The hunt begins. The icy waters of the Bering Sea have seen many brave souls, but none quite like Captain Jonathan Hillstrand. Known as the fearless captain of the Time Bandit, Jonathan, along with his wife Heather and brother Andy, make up a crew that has become almost legendary in the Deadliest Catch world. Together, this trio was more than just a family. They were the heart and soul of one of the most daring expeditions on television. For them, crab hunting was not just a job, it was a way of life, and they were ready to face whatever the icy depths threw at them. Their mission was clear: to haul in enough crabs to secure their families' futures before the closing of fisheries. But there was something deeper driving them. Jonathan was more just in it for the money. He wanted to prove to himself, his crew, and his fans that they were capable of more. They were 180 miles northwest of Dutch Harbor, deep in the Alaskan waters, and the stakes had never been higher. As the crew prepared for the long journey ahead, there was one thing that could always bring some warmth to the cold, endless ocean: breakfast. And who better to make it than Heather? She had baked fresh butter cookies and paired them with a warm glass of milk, giving Jonathan the energy to face the day ahead. As the scent of baked cookies filled the air on the Time Bandit, it felt like a small slice of comfort in a world filled with danger. But Jonathan knew that comfort wouldn't last. The sea was not known for being kind, and he couldn't afford to get too comfortable. Jonathan's passion for the hunt was evident in everything he did. From the way he spoke to his crew to how he steered the ship, his optimism was clear and spread to everyone around him. His crew followed his lead without hesitation. They were in this together, all focused on the same goal: catching enough crabs to make the trip worthwhile. After all, this was more than just about feeding their families. It was about being a part of something bigger. They wanted to prove themselves as the best, the ones who could handle the roughest conditions and still come out on top. But when the crab pot came up empty on the first try, the mood shifted. For a moment, frustration set in. The crew had hoped for a bounty, but instead they were met with disappointment. The empty crab pot was showing failure. No crabs, nothing. Just the sound of the ocean's roar and the sting of defeat. And so the cycle continued as the crew pulled up empty pot after empty pot. They were sailing through what felt like a wasteland, a stretch of water that seemed devoid of life. With each failed attempt, their optimism began to crack. Jonathan, ever the optimist, refused to let the failure break him. He knew this wasn't the end. In the world of Deadliest Catch, failure was part of the journey. But that didn't mean it didn't sting. It was hard to keep your head up when the very thing you came for seemed so elusive. But Jonathan was determined to turn it around. His crew knew it too. They could see the fire in his eyes. He was not about to let a few empty crab pots ruin their season, but they knew they had to find a way to turn things around and keep moving forward. As the boat rocked in the turbulent waters, Jonathan couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. The horizon seemed endless, stretching far beyond what anyone could see. The unknown was out there, somewhere, and the promise of success was still there, just out of reach. But the journey was far from over. Jonathan and his crew had barely scratched the surface of what was to come. Could they find a new spot to reel in the crabs they so desperately needed? What's next for Jonathan and his crew as they prepare to face the unknown depths of the Alaskan Ocean? Be with us as things are about to get a whole lot more interesting. Deep into the unknown. Frustration was creeping in on the Time Bandit. Empty pots kept coming up one after another, and the mood on board was starting to sour. But Captain Jonathan Hillstrand was not the type to let bad luck get the best of him. He'd seen worse and come out on top. This had never been his first rodeo, and the ocean wouldn't break him. Then, like a light bulb flicking on, Jonathan had an idea. But the idea was bold and risky. He decided they needed to go deeper, much deeper. The waters they had been searching were nothing compared to what he had in mind. Jonathan was thinking 3/4 of a mile deep into the heart of an underwater canyon. Why? Because he knew something others didn't. That canyon, with its dark crevices and jagged walls, was the perfect habitat for golden crabs. These crabs weren't your average catch. They thrived in cold, tight spaces, and this canyon was like a crab paradise. If they could get the pots down there, Jonathan was sure they'd hit the jackpot. Jonathan's reputation was on the line. He didn't just seek a paycheck, he needed to prove something, both to himself and his crew. They trusted him, and he couldn't afford to let them down. If he could pull this off, he wouldn't just be another fisherman. He'd be a deep-sea explorer, remembered for pushing the limits of what was possible. "We're going deeper," Jonathan said. His voice was full of conviction. "We're going into the canyon." Without hesitation, the crew followed. They knew Jonathan's instincts were spot on, even if this gamble could be their biggest risk yet. Jonathan had a plan to reach the crabs. He instructed the crew to throw out 1-mile ropes, stretching them far and wide to create a perfect circle of traps. They couldn't just drop the pots and hope for the best. They had to make sure the crabs could find them. This was a huge, deep canyon, and they needed to cover a lot of ground. The crew, though a little nervous, couldn't help but feel the excitement building. This feels like an adventure, a real deep-sea expedition. If Jonathan's plan worked, they would be the ones to bring back a legendary catch. As the ropes went out and the pots descended into the deep, everyone was on edge with excitement. No one spoke much. The buzz of the engines and the sound of the ropes cutting through the water was all they needed to hear. They were committed, but the ocean is unpredictable. They could easily pull up nothing but empty pots again. Jonathan's mind raced with possibilities. The risk was immense, but Jonathan knew it could pay off. The crabs could be waiting for them, or they might face another disappointment. The crew worked quickly, efficiently, and quietly. The stakes were high, and Jonathan had no time to second guess. They were doing something no one else dared to do, and if they found the crabs, the rewards would be more than money. It would be respect, recognition, and the satisfaction of pushing the limits. The pots took a long time to reach the ocean floor, but there was no turning back now. They were committed. So what happens when you push the limits on Deadliest Catch? Will Jonathan's bold strategy lead to success, or will the ocean push back harder than anyone expected? The real test is just beginning, risking it all. Jonathan's strategy was clear. 7 ropes, each 1 mile long, thrown out into the depths of sea. The ropes would be stretched wide, creating a large circle, and then the crew would drop the crab pots into the deep water, hoping to catch the crabs hiding in the dark. As the ropes sunk into the ocean's depths, the crew felt the weight of the decision. They were about to go where few dared to venture before. This did not seem like your average crab hunt. This was a mission, a test of courage, skill, and faith. As the ropes disappeared into the depths, Jonathan couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. He was not just hunting for crabs, he was hunting for something bigger, something that would define his legacy. He didn't just want to fill the Time Bandit with crabs. No, Jonathan dreamed of discovering something new, something that would make him and his crew famous. He dreamed of finding a species of crabs that no one had ever seen before, maybe even a new kind of monster hiding in the deep. Like a headline, Captain Jonathan Hillstrand, Deep Sea Explorer. Sure, the crabs were worth a lot of cash, but Jonathan's reputation was on the line. He wanted respect. He wanted to prove to everyone that he and his crew weren't just another bunch of crabbers, they were pioneers. They were the kind of crew that pushed limits, that dared to go farther than anyone had ever gone. And this canyon, this dark and mysterious stretch of the ocean, was the perfect place to do it. Jonathan could already picture the stories people would tell about him, how he went into the deep, faced the canyon depths, and came back with riches, and maybe even a little fame. The crew didn't have to say much. They knew the stakes. They knew how important this hunt was. So they worked in silence, each man pulling their weight, throwing out the ropes with precision and care. There was no room for mistakes. Jonathan's eyes stayed locked on the horizon, as if he could somehow see the future before him. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, the moment that could change everything. But the deeper they went, the more unpredictable things became. The sea had a way of testing those who dared to challenge it. As the ropes continued to sink, Jonathan couldn't help but feel the pressure building. What if this didn't work? What if the crabs weren't there? Or worse, what if they were so deep that even the most experienced fishermen wouldn't be able to reach them? These thoughts crept into his mind, but Jonathan didn't let them take root. He'd made a career out of turning the impossible into possible. This time wouldn't be any different. By now, the crew had dropped all 7 ropes into the water. The circle was complete, and it was time to drop the pots. Each crew member knew their role and moved with purpose. There was no time for hesitation. They were in this together, and no matter how deep they had to go, they were going to stick it out until the very end. So what happens when a captain and his crew go all in, pushing the limits of what's possible on the deadliest catch? Will they hit the jackpot, or will the deep sea prove to be too much for them? The ocean's secret. Jonathan's heart was racing as the time bandit neared the golden crab grounds. They were about to dive into uncharted waters, 1 mile deep where no one had gone before. This was more than just about crabs anymore. It was about pushing the limits of what was possible. With every mile, Jonathan's optimism grew. Years of experience told him they were on the edge of something big. He couldn't stop imagining what they might find. Maybe a new species of crab, or even stranger creatures like sea dragons or mythical sea monkeys. Jonathan Hillstrand, the man who discovered new species under the deep sea. But it was tough. Dropping the pots at this depth took time, 36 to 40 minutes just to reach the ocean floor. They were heading into a deep, remote canyon, one that few had dared to explore. It was like the ocean was hiding its secrets in plain sight. It was the thrill of discovery, the idea that they might find something so rare, so extraordinary, that it changed everything. The Time Bandit could go down in history for uncovering the hidden wonders of the ocean. As the crew worked in silence, they all knew the stakes. Soon they would either find the crabs they were hunting for or face another empty pot. Jonathan, though, had a feeling, a gut instinct telling him they were about to hit the jackpot. After what seemed like an eternity, the pots started to rise. Jonathan's eyes locked onto the first one, his heart pounding in his chest. When the pots finally broke the surface, they didn't disappoint. A massive pile of shiny golden crabs, bigger than they dared hope for, crawled out. The crew couldn't hold back. Cheers erupted, their voices lifting above the waves. Jonathan grinned, feeling the weight of the moment. All the long hours, the uncertainty, it had led to this. They'd hit the golden jackpot. And Jonathan had just gone from a seasoned crabber to a deep-sea pioneer. The struggles melted away in an instant. But Jonathan was not done. The golden crabs were just the beginning. With every catch, the mystery of the deep seemed to grow. What else could the ocean reveal? What other treasures could be hidden in these dark waters? This hunt was just the start. They were no longer just fishermen. They were explorers. And the ocean? It was theirs to conquer. But how far would they push this? Would they go even deeper, testing the limits of what they could handle? Or would the sea remind them of its unforgiving power? These were the questions that would shape the next chapter of their journey. And with his crew by his side, Jonathan Hillstrand was ready for whatever came next, the terrifying catch. Jonathan's optimism was untiring. After all the setbacks, he still believed the deep ocean held secrets that could make this journey worth every ounce of effort. And so, with a mix of excitement and determination, he pushed his crew to go even deeper. Much deeper than they ever had before. Weeks of searching had brought them this far, but Jonathan had one goal in mind: to find something truly remarkable. This time, it wasn't just the crabs he was after. He was hunting for the unknown, something that could change everything. He believed that if they dove deeper, they might uncover a species unlike anything they'd ever seen. And that's exactly what happened. The crew went down further, to depths that most men would never dare to reach. As they brought up the crab pot from dark waters, something incredible caught Jonathan's eye. A new species of crab monster, larger and more terrifying than anything they had ever encountered before. But that was just the beginning. What really made Jonathan's heart race wasn't just the monstrous crab, it was what came next. This time, the crab pot brought something more terrifying. A fish with ball-like eyes that seemed to peer right through them. It was almost alien in appearance, with its bulbous, glowing eyes and odd shape. Jonathan instantly recognized it. A grenadier fish, a species so rare and so strange that few had ever laid eyes on it before. But what made it even more disturbing was the bulbous organ hanging from its mouth. It looked like something straight out of a horror movie. That strange appendage wasn't just an odd feature, it was a sign of something deeper. The fish had experienced barotrauma, a condition that occurs when deep-sea creatures are brought to the surface too quickly. The sudden change in pressure causes their bodies to undergo extreme stress, often resulting in bizarre and terrifying physical deformities. It was an eerie reminder of how harsh and unforgiving the deep ocean could be. But Jonathan didn't let the unsettling sight stop him. His mission was clear, and nothing, not even these terrifying creatures, could distract him now. He and his crew pressed on, hauling up more pots, and slowly but surely, they started to see the rewards of their deep-sea quest. They were catching crabs, big, valuable crabs, and not just a few. These were the crabs that could make this whole trip worth the effort. By the end of their hunt, Jonathan and his team had hauled in a total worth of $322,000 crabs. The journey had been long, exhausting, and filled with uncertainty, but in the end, it was all worth it. The terrifying creatures they found along the way, the crab monsters, the barotrauma-injured fish, were proof that they had ventured into uncharted waters, into the unknown. They had pushed the limits, discovered new species, and proven that there was always more to uncover beneath the surface. Jonathan's journey was one of hope, fear, and success. It was more than just the crabs or the money. It was about the thrill of discovery, the challenge of the unknown, and the sense of triumph that came with overcoming the odds. In the end, Jonathan and his crew did it. They had pushed deeper, gone further, and come out victorious. As they sailed back toward port, Jonathan couldn't help but think about what other wonders and horrors lay hidden in the depths of the ocean. What other terrifying creatures would they find next time? Would the sea always have something new and terrifying waiting for them? The deep sea journey was not over. For Jonathan and his crew, the ocean was full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. And next time, who knows what they might discover? The adventure was far from finished. What do you think about Jonathan's terrifying discovery? Do you think the deep sea holds even more secrets waiting to be uncovered? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more incredible adventures from Deadliest Catch.